Hello, it's August now, and I'm going to try and do a little bit of a roundup of some of the books that I've read and some of the things I've been doing this month. I don't think I did anything for July, just completely missed it by. There was just so many things going on. I just didn't keep up with it, but I have been reading lots of books and I've got some interesting reviews to give of them. So I'll start getting going. So right at the end of last month, it was my Free Your Mind event where I had speakers about different spiritual paths that people can take. They was talking about Reiki and hypnotherapy and what else were we talking about? So trying to navigate yourself in this reality, channeling and communicating with spirits, and it was really, really good. It was really good. The speakers were just absolutely excellent. I was just blown away by them. It was really brilliant. It's given me so much to think about since. Really mind expanding, wonderful. I've put the videos of the event on my YouTube channel and you should definitely check them out and have a look. Just to, open your mind to some new ideas or things that you're already interested in to learn a bit more about, or just for the fun of it. Why not? Hear what other people have to say. They were really, really good. Unfortunately, I didn't get the video the whole day because it was just me videoing it on a little camera and the battery couldn't last out for the day. But the bits that we do have are really, really good. I was so impressed with everybody who was there. It was really brilliant. So that's that. It was a great event. I think it's really important for us to keep expanding our mind, our ideas, really be open to new things, especially at this time in the world when things are changing and there's a lot going on. I really think it's important for people to be open to new ideas so that they can bring out their own creativity and try and imagine the world that they want to create and work towards that. Okay, on to the books that I've been reading. So I did a big fat review for the Seth book, so I'm not going to talk about that. But I do recommend that you check it out because it was like totally amazing. Right, so other books that I've read. I've read The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. And if you remember, I was sort of hoping that was going to be an easygoing book because I've read quite a lot of heavy books lately. And I was looking for something just sort of light. And I know Oscar Wilde is a really brilliant writer and he's very entertaining and humorous. So I was really hoping for a bit of a holiday with this book. I would not say that I got a holiday with this book. It was a lot darker than I thought it would be. And sort of themes that really go into the soul and good behaviour and bad behaviour. I think I'd characterise the book as being about sort of influence and the influence that people can have over other people and affect their behaviour. So roughly the book it's set at the end of the 1800s. I think it was written in 1890 or published then. They're all rich people in London, so you've got to get over that. So Dorian Gray is a young, very handsome man, and a man, Basil Hallward, is painting him, and he's basically in love with him. So he paints this amazing portrait of him, and very, very lifelike, and it's all beautiful. And Dorian sort of just, makes a throwaway wish that he wishes that the painting would age as time goes by rather than him aging. And then that is actually what happens in the story. So the painting gets old and haggard and all the signs of sin show on it, whereas Dorian Gray stays young and fresh-faced and beautiful and doesn't show any of those signs. So that's sort of roughly the story, but there's really a lot in it about the influence that people have over Dorian Gray. So when he starts out, he's quite young and naive, and Basil Hallward is probably quite a good influence. He wants him to be a good person, things like that. But then you've got Lord Henry Wotton. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that completely right. And he is definitely not a good influence. He's very naughty and encourages him to do lots of self-indulgent things, and it all sounds sort of quite humorous and fun, but actually as things play out, people keep getting hurt, and and then Dorian Gray becomes a bad influence on all these other people as he's indulging his own self-interest, all the people that get left behind and hurt along the way. So it's really, really good. Obviously it's brilliantly written. Oscar Wilde is a very unique writer. you know, just a lovely writing experience. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty damning description of human nature, and particularly in this period of time. Right, so we talked a little bit about the story. I'll do a couple of quotes from it. I haven't got many. Yeah, you really. It was a lot darker than I thought it would be in the ways that people get taken. The sort of deprivation. There was drugs in there and all sorts. And Dorian Gray ends up dragging a lot of people down with him again and again because they keep being taken in by his sort of sweet and innocent beauty. But yeah, and because obviously he's not aging, he still looks young and innocent and lovely. Right, so we've covered that. Right, I'll do a couple of little quotes from the book so you can see what Oscar Wilde's lovely writing is like. Where are we? So page 11, which is right at the beginning. So this is just like, this is literally the start of the book, okay, chapter 1. The studio was filled with the rich odour of roses, and when the light summer wind stirred amidst the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of the lilac, or the more delicate perfume of the pink flowering thorn. It's just like, just to give you a little taste of the sort of style of writing. It's really beautiful all the way through. Obviously Oscar Wilde's really good at sort of bringing together as well very sort of opposites and sarcastic sort of comments as well, but there's also a lot of really beautiful writing and description all the way through the book, which is really lovely. Okay, so this is Lord Henry talking to Dorian Gray when he's not long met him, and talking about how, you know, beautiful Dorian Gray is. So Lord Henry says, "To me, beauty is the wonder of wonders. It is only shallow people who do not judge by appearances. The true mystery of the world is the visible, not the invisible. Yes, Mr. Gray, the gods have been good to you. But what the gods give, they quickly take away. You have only a few years in which to live really, perfectly and fully. When your youth goes, your beauty will go with it, and then you will suddenly discover that there are no triumphs left for you, or have to content yourself with those mean triumphs that the memory of your past will make more bitter than defeats. Every month as it wanes brings you nearer to something dreadful. Time is jealous of you, and wars against your lilies and your roses. You will become sallow and hollow-cheeked and dull-eyed. You will suffer horribly. Realise your youth while you have it. Don't squander the gold of your days, listening to the tedious, trying to improve the hopeless failure, or giving away your life to the ignorant, the common and the vulgar. These are the sickly aims, the false ideals of our age. Live the wonderful life that is in you. Let nothing be lost upon you. Be always searching for new sensations. Be afraid of nothing. A new hedonism, that is what our century wants. You might be its visible symbol. With your personality, there is nothing you could not do. The world belongs to you for a season. The moment I met you, I saw that you were quite unconscious of what you really are, of what you really might be. There was so much in you that charmed me that I felt I must tell you something about yourself. I thought how tragic it would be if you were wasted, for there is such a little time that your youth will last, such a little time. The common hill flowers wither, but they blossom again. The laburnum will be as yellow next June as it is now. In a month there will be purple stars on the clematis, and year after year the green night of its leaves will hold its purple stars. But we never get back our youth. The pulse of joy that beats in us at 20 becomes sluggish. Our limbs fail, our senses rot, we degenerate into hideous puppets, haunted by the memory of the passions of which we were too much afraid, and the exquisite temptations that we had not the courage to yield to. Youth. There is nothing in the world but youth." Okay, so that's the sort of influence that Lord Henry is, and just really encouraging him to make the most of his talents while he's got them. Okay, So this is sort of when Dorian realizes that, yeah, maybe he is very handsome, and he looks at the painting and thinks about time and how time will run out and things. How sad it is, murmured Dorian Gray with his eyes still fixed upon his own portrait. How sad it is. I shall grow old and horrible and dreadful, but this picture will remain always young. It will never be older than this particular day of June. If it were only the other way, if it were I who was to be always young and the picture that was to grow old, for that, I would give everything. Yes, there is nothing in the whole world I would not give. I would give my soul for that. Well, what a very presumptuous quote. Because that's basically what happens. He ends up sort of just losing his moral compass as he can get away with more and more. Okay. So, and one of the things that you see in this book as well with Dorian Gray is that he never really takes responsibility for his actions. So as he begins to hurt people with his thoughtless behaviour, where he's just thinking about himself, he'll then justify it to himself that they were in the wrong because they expected too much of him or whatever. Okay, so this quote is, so he's met this young woman, Sybil Vane, who he's fallen completely in love with and wants to marry, but he quickly loses interest in her. And then he goes home. He's hurt her because he's let her down and things, and he notices that the picture has changed. But the strange expression that he had noticed in the face of the portrait seemed to linger there, to be more intensified even. The quivering, ardent sunlight showed him the lines of cruelty round the mouth as clearly as if he had been looking into a mirror after he had done some dreadful thing. Okay, and then he sort of reflects on it to himself and decides that, yes, there is definitely a touch of cruelty in the mouth. And that's just the beginning of the ageing of the picture. So Lord Henry and Basil Hallward really seem to represent the different influences that people have in their lives, and obviously it's the individual that can go either way. So it's a bit like sort of devil and angel on the shoulder, and there are times when Dorian Gray will sort of say that he's going to get better, and he's going to aim at goodness and being a better person, reform himself, but he always falls back to self-gratification and is encouraged on by Lord Henry. And he also continually fails to take responsibility for the outcomes of his behaviour. Right, 149. Okay, so let's look at this quote. He himself would creep upstairs to the locked room, open the door with the key that never left him now, and stand with a mirror in front of the portrait that Basil Hallward had painted of him, looking now at the evil and ageing face on the canvas, and now at the fair young face that laughed back at him from the polished glass. The very sharpness of the contrast used to quicken his sense of pleasure. He grew more and more enamoured of his own beauty, more and more interested in the corruption of his own soul. He would examine with minute care, and sometimes with a monstrous and terrible delight, the hideous lines that seared the wrinkling forehead or crawled around the heavy sensual mouth, wondering sometimes which were the more horrible, the signs of sin or the signs of age. He would place his white hands beside the coarse, bloated hands of the picture and smile. He mocked the misshapen body and the failing limbs. So it's pretty dark. It's a pretty dark book. So that's obviously after he's had years of bad behaviour, and the picture's really taken the toll. So I think in this book, Wilde is really sort of exploring his own ideas on the themes of sin and goodness and human nature and the mesh of behaviour and impulses. So you've got sort of depravity and purity, reputation and ruin. These are very Victorian themes of the time, but they're presented very well, and in that particular sort of Wilde writing style. Okay, so it's a bold examination of his time and class. Got one more quote, last one. Okay, so this is when I just wanted to have this quote just because of obviously Oscar Wilde's known for being very funny and humorous. So this is quite near the end of the book. And Lord Henry, so actually that's a good example. So his life has not gone very well. He's ended up divorced and he's on his own. He's still there sort of mocking people and encouraging bad behaviour, but it hasn't actually gone very well for him. And Dorian Gray obviously still looks young and beautiful. So they're talking about his secret. How did he get away with it? So Lord Henry says, "You have changed, of course, but not in appearance. I wish you would tell me your secret. To get back my youth, I would do anything in the world, except take exercise, get up early, or be respectable." So that's a lovely quote, which sort of sums up Oscar Wilde's writing style. Right. The other book that I'm going to do a little review for is this one. It's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Actually, when I first got this book, I thought it was Do Androids Dream of Electric Sleep, which would have been a sort of more abstract title to the book. Philip K. Dick seems like quite an interesting person. And then when I was looking up this book, it said that it was the book that the film Blade Runner was based on. And I hadn't seen the film Blade Runner, but I saw the new one, the recent one. It was on TV not long ago, and I'd watched that. And it was a strange film. It was very watchable, which is unusual in this day and age of the internet and things, that you can actually sit and watch a film. I didn't particularly like it or like the themes of it, but it was very watchable. And I hadn't at that time seen Blade Runner, so I thought, let's read this book and see what it's like. So roughly what happens in it, this is written in the 60s, in the 1960s, but it's set around now in history. And it's about a man, Decker, and his job. It's like a policeman, and it's very 60s book. It's very kind of 60s style of policeman, sort of behind desk and out, on their own, sort of doing their job. And he retires or kills robots who are where they shouldn't be. So they have robots out in the space colonies doing all the work and things, and then some of them try to escape and come back to England, come back to what planet are we on? Earth. And his job is to retire them. And Earth at this time is in a really bad state. There's been lots of wars and things, and there's this kind of toxic dust that is destroying everything. So most people want to leave, and most people have left. It's really desolate. But he has to stay because he's doing this job. There was some really good themes in the book of things like animals. So animals are really important in the book. So that's the whole thing of this electric sheep, because Decker's sheep had died. So everybody has an animal, and it's a real big status symbol in this time to have an animal, because there's so few of them, because everything's been killed. And he'd had a sheep and it had died, so he's got an electric sheep. And he's just, not satisfied with this electric sheep. It's just not, as much as he can get away with fooling people that it's his sheep, because he goes and feeds it every day and looks after it, he's not satisfied with it. And what he really, really wants is enough money to buy a real animal. Yes, it's got sort of humorous as well. So the animals as well really are representative, because I think the humans need to kind of show that they're empathetic. There's these sort of IQ tests are done on them regularly, and the way that they identify the robots is doing empathy tests. So having the animals, it's very much a sort of outward sign of your empathy and your caringness. Obviously they're very scarce as well, so there's a desire aspect of them as well. So I felt like there was a lot of trying to understand what defines being a human and humanity, and does it matter if it's an android, if they can sort of have humanity? How well can they replicate humans? Could they be better than humans? I felt like the conclusion of the book was that computers can never replicate humans, they don't have humanity at a basic level, and that we should probably never forget this. Okay, and then I thought that the Blade Runner film that I had seen, that new one, definitely did forget this, because obviously it was trying to sort of humanise robots and, you know, think of their point of view, bless them. Okay, and then I think you need to think about, so obviously we're made up, we have a soul. I know people like to pretend that side of us doesn't exist, but obviously it does, because you can't explain anything otherwise. So obviously robots don't have a soul because they're purely physical. They're the purely physical side of things. So they might be able to do things very well, but they don't have that inner humanity, or do they? And I think the conclusion of the book was that no, they don't. But obviously you don't get that from the film, which is trying to say that, you know, they've had babies and things like that. And can you put that humanity into a robot by giving it different memories and things like that? So things that were really interesting in the book, you have this sort of battle for influence over people, similar to in the Dorian Gray book, this battle for influence over people's minds. So you've got Buster Friendly, who's sort of on the TV and influences everybody, and is quite a sort of shallow, materialistic version. And then you've got the Wilbur Mercer and the Mercerism, the empathy boxes that people use to connect and have empathy. And he's almost like a Jesus figure, sort of constantly suffering, and everybody joins in with that. And in the book, people sort of are drawn to both. Obviously there'll be some people more drawn to one than the other, but people like to watch Buster Friendly on the TV. They all love him, but they also do their empathy boxes and walk with Bill Mercer. And then I was thinking about in our society, which influence is winning. Okay, so I've got one quote from this book. I think I only had one. Where are we? 141. Yeah, I think the thing is, so this is quite near the end of the book, and Rick is sort of thinking about the androids and whether it's really right to be killing them, because even though they don't have humanity in the way that we do, and they are robots and they will ultimately sort of look after themselves, is it right that we're killing them? And he talks to Mercer about it. Mercer says that there is no salvation, and Rick says, well then, you know, what's this for? What are you for? And he says, to show you that you're not alone. I am here with you and always will be. Go and do your task even though you know it's wrong. And then Rick says, like, well, why? Rick said, why should I do it? I'll quit my job and emigrate. The old man said, you will be required to do wrong no matter where you go. It is the basic condition of life, to be required to violate your own identity. At some time, every creature which lives must do so. It is the ultimate shadow, the defeat of creation. This is the curse at work, the curse that feeds on all life, everywhere in the universe. And I just thought that was incredibly profound, and, you know, I think, yeah, really, really interesting. A really interesting quote. Anyway, so then, over the weekend just gone, I thought that I would watch Blade Runner, the original one. I think I looked it up a while ago, couldn't find it for free, but I managed to find it. So I thought I'd watch it, and I got really annoyed watching it. It's just like, it's so nothing like the book. So I didn't think this was the best book in the world. It was quite written sort of in a quite two-dimensional way. Although it had some really deep ideas and themes, it was written in quite a sort of two-dimensional way. But the film just didn't even tackle any of those really big themes, and they didn't even have the kind of Buster Friendly and Will Mercer thing, and they didn't have that animal thing. It's like, how can you do this film and not have the sheep? It's really just, you know, I just felt like it was a really kind of tacky robot film, stupid love story, which in the book, I don't think that he's ever in love with with Rachel. I think he finds her sexually attractive, which is confusing to him because he's used to being, you know, hating them and sort of dehumanizing them so much. So it just really annoyed me that, and then I thought back to the other Blade Runner film, that they were really glamorizing the androids, really glamorizing them, and actually dehumanizing the humans, and it just pissed me off. I just thought, there's always this projections that are put out to people of how glamorous robots are, and whatever. Yeah, they're not. And that humans are just depraved animals, and it's us that can't control ourselves, and they're so in control. And this is just not the message that I got from the book. The message that I got from the book is that humans do have a much deeper level of humanity and empathy, and actually that all those attributes that we believe the robots to have are what we're projecting onto them because they're from us. And that the robots in the book ultimately are always self-serving because they're rational. Why would they not be? We're irrational. It's why we love and have humour and things. So it just really, really annoyed me that they just twisted it so much. And just everything about the film annoyed me. Even the fact there were birds everywhere, which, like, a whole thing in the book is that there are no birds because the birds were like the first animals to die. And there's one owl in it, which is not a real owl. I know it's not real in the film, but it just really annoyed me that these birds everywhere. So for me, the book's message is absolutely clear. No to the robots. Okay, there's things like the spider incident, and it just really sums up the difference between humans and robots. And I think that was the thing in the book, the fact that this J.R. Isidore, he's got a low IQ, he's a lesser human, he's a special, he can't go to the new world, he has to stay in the old world. But his humanity is huge, his care and his empathy and his love. And then you have the robots, which are like, the sort of epitome of physical and IQ achievement. They don't have that, and they're always happy to sacrifice something else to preserve themselves, and we shouldn't be forgetting that. So yeah, I think that really sums it. The spider incident, the way they treat J.R. Isidore, and the fact that the humans can never really love their electric animals, because deep down, as much as they'll project things onto them, to try and have that connection, because that's what we're about, deep down they know it's empty, can't be replicated artificially. And I think there are many humans alive today who don't know this, despite the fact that it is the truth. Okay, so again, it made me think about the world you want. Don't accept the world that we're being given and think, oh, well, maybe because it's like kind of saying that maybe the robots are better at it than me, and they're obviously the more attractive and intelligent, and they're stronger and all these things. No, because they're not human, and they don't have that humanity and that love and connection that we have, and they will never have that. So let's imagine the world that we do want. They're not in it, believe me. The reason people accept this is a consolation for something real that's missing. Let's aim for the real thing. Okay. So I think that was an important question going through the book, was, can electric things have a soul and our inner world and stuff like that? And the answer is no, they can't. They can only be a recipient, of our soul projection. Okay. So they're the two books I'm reviewing. I've got more books to review. I just need to get round to it. The other books I've read are The Ancient Mysteries and The Anarchist Revelation. So I will try and do a review for them soon. And currently I'm reading Gulag Archipelago 2. Very disturbing, very dark, very, very good. Okay. Right, I'll try and do those reviews soon. Okay? Thank you.